Welcome back to the live webinar here from BINA. On Monday, we started to discuss the topic of Torah's view on freedom of speech. Just to summarize what we discussed on Monday, we discussed that Torah encourages debate. The entire Talmud is full of people expressing their opinions, even arguing their opinion. However, true freedom always comes together with restrictions, because restrictions free you from yourself, free you from your desires, free you from your natural impulses. Same thing is regarding the freedom that Torah gives us to speak and express our opinion. That freedom comes together with restrictions. We are restricted to what we are actually allowed to say and what we are supposed to say and speak. These restrictions are divided into two categories. What we say directly to somebody else, and what we say about somebody else, even if that somebody else is not there. On Monday, we discussed the first one, that it is forbidden to cause unnecessary pain to somebody through telling them something or through saying something to them. For example, reminding them about their evil past, their evil ways, that would be causing unnecessary pain to that person. Or calling them a name, a nickname, which they don't like, is so bad that it even causes you to lose your share in the world to come. Today, let's discuss what we cannot say about other people, even if they are not around and they do not hear what I have to say. Generally, this prohibition goes under the name, the title called Lashon Hara, evil talk, slandering. However, we will see that there are actually different categories and different names for this idea. There are many stories throughout our history, many evils that have come about through Lashon Hara, through slandering, through evil talk about other people. Going back to the very beginning of history, of time, with the snake and Eve and Chava, that the snake got Chava to eat from the tree of knowledge, even though God had forbidden her to do so. The commentaries explain, how did the snake do that? Because the snake slandered about God. The snake spoke evil, spoke Lashon Hara about God. Later on, Joseph and his brothers, it all started off because Yosef spoke negatively about his brothers. He told his father bad things about things that his brothers had done. That resulted into the brothers being jealous. That resulted into Joseph going into slavery, which the end result of that was the exile of Egypt of 210 years of terrible labor and terrible suffering for the Jewish people. When Moses came onto the scene, he wondered, why had the Jewish people been worthy and deserving of such terrible suffering in Egypt? But when he saw that his Jewish brothers were slandering about one another, were speaking negatively about one another, he understood that the punishment of the terrible exile of Egypt was because of this. Later on in Jewish history, King Shaul HaMelech, fought a war against the Philistines. And the truth is that King Saul was a big tzaddik, he was a very righteous person. However, because the people of that time were slandering against David, the future King David, because of that, they lost the war. It is said that about a much later king, King Achav, who was terribly wicked, he served idols. However, he won his war against the enemies of the Jewish people at that time, because the sin of Lashon Hara, the sin of evil talk about one another did not exist then. They were united. They did not talk badly and negatively about one another. And from that merit alone, even though they served the idols, they won the war against their enemies. And of course, the biggest tragedy of all times, the destruction of the temple, of the second temple, which led to all the tragedies of Jewish history later on from that, was because of Lashon Hara, was because they spoke negatively and evil about one another. Now let's talk the laws. What laws apply to this? When is it forbidden to speak negative about somebody else, and when is it permitted? So in evil talk itself, there are three general categories. There's what we call Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara means that you say negative things about somebody else, even if it is true. The person who listens to what I have to say and believes it also transgresses the sin of Lashon Hara, of evil talk. There are exceptions to this, as we will see later. The next category is called moitzi shemra. Moitzi shemra means making up a story, a bad story about somebody else which did not happen. It's even worse than lashon hara. Lashon hara, at least it's true. Here we're talking about somebody who makes up a negative story about somebody else and spreads those lies. That is the worst form of evil talk, and there are no exceptions to that. That is never permitted. All of this applies, moitzi shemra and lashon hara apply, even when I say this and I do not mention the name of the person to who this happened to. Because there could be that there are people around me who are listening to me, and they can just tell from the details of the story, they will know who it happened to. So therefore it is even forbidden to say lashon hara and moitzi shemra, of course, for sure, even when I do not include the name of the parties involved. Then there's a third category, which takes it to a whole new level, which is called rechilus. Rechilus means that it is forbidden to talk about other people unnecessarily, period. You are not supposed to go around and tell stories about other people for no reason whatsoever, just because you want to make conversation or just because it makes a good story. Judaism encourages us to speak and even debate concepts, laws, outlooks. But just to talk about other people for no necessary reason at all is greatly discouraged, and that is called rechilus. Somebody who just goes around telling stories about people, even if it isn't bad, even if it isn't negative. Just the very idea of telling things that happen to other people, or this person said this, and this person said that, that is considered a negative thing. However, as mentioned, there are exceptions. When are we allowed to say true negative things about other people? And that is, in brief, to protect yourself or protect others from harm. Harm includes physical harm, includes financial harm, and includes emotional harm. For example, if I had a worker who works for my business that stole money from me and I fired him, and I know my friend someone I know is about to hire him, I am allowed to tell the truth, point out can cause financial harm to you. If somebody is a murderer or can cause terrible harm to society, whether it's to children or adults or anything of that sort, any type of harm, any type of physical harm, any type of emotional harm, it is not only you are not only allowed to tell other people and point out that danger, we are even encouraged to protect people around us and to point out the danger of that person. Another example, which was brought down in Jewish law, if somebody is in therapy for abuse or anything of that sort, and part of the therapy is saying the story and saying the negative thing which you went through, it is, again, not only allowed but encouraged to do so. To summarize, when it comes to law and concepts, it is greatly encouraged, and we are supposed to debate and express our opinion, because that is how Jewish law is formed. That is how outlooks are formed, when we debate and we express our opinion about Judaism. When it comes to speaking against people, as a general rule, causing pain to other people, whether directly or indirectly, is forbidden. However, to prevent damage and harm, or to fix damage or harm that has been caused in the past, is permitted, whether for yourself or others. So yes, we have freedom of speech, but freedom of bad and negative and harmful speech, we do not have. Speech that produces more Torah, more inspiration, prevents danger, and brings about goodness in the world, we definitely have freedom of, and is definitely encouraged. Have a good day.